In recent weeks, a controversy has ignited within political and social media circles as influential figures engage in a battle over the authenticity of grassroots activism. At the center of this dispute stands billionaire entrepreneur Elon Musk, whose latest public remarks have directly targeted progressive leaders Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. The confrontation, ignited by a tweet from Musk, challenges the legitimacy of the massive rallies held by Sanders and AOC as part of their Stop Oligarchy tour. This report delves into the details of the controversy, examining the data, methodologies, and broader political implications behind the claims. The movement spearheaded by Bernie Sanders and AOC has captivated audiences across the nation, drawing significant crowds at rallies designed to oppose entrenched oligarchic power structures. A notable example of this widespread appeal occurred at a rally in Denver, where organizers claimed that 34,000 people had gathered in support of the cause. This figure, which surpasses the attendance at many previous political events, even rivaling the numbers seen during Trump's campaign appearances, serves as a testament to the movement's reach and the growing public discontent with existing power dynamics. However, the controversy deepened when an analysis based on GPS data began to circulate, suggesting that the actual attendance at the Denver rally might have been significantly lower. According to this data, the crowd number was closer to 20,000 rather than the reported 34,000. Moreover, the analysis indicated that a substantial majority, approximately 84%, of the devices tracked at the rally had been present at 9 or more other protests, including events organized by groups associated with Antifa, Black Lives Matter, pro-Hamas demonstrations, and pro-Palestinian activism. More strikingly, over 30% of these devices had been recorded at 20 or more separate events. These findings have fueled the narrative that the rally's turnout was not the result of a spontaneous, organic assembly of citizens, but rather the outcome of coordinated participation among activists linked to established networks. Among the groups mentioned are the Disruption Project, Indivisible, Democratic Socialists of America, Rise and Resist, and others that have been reportedly funded by entities such as Act Blue, with additional backing coming from sources identified as USAID Optics. The allegation, as summarized by figures like Tony Saruga of Zero Hedge and amplified by Musk, is that the so-called grassroots movement was significantly bolstered by paid protest participants moving from one event to the next. Elon Musk's entry into this debate has been particularly noteworthy. In a tweet that has since drawn widespread criticism, Musk dismissed the Denver rally as merely a manufactured event, claiming that the turnout was inflated by paid demonstrators. His commentary implied that the numbers were manipulated and that the rally did not represent a genuine, spontaneous outpouring of public sentiment. Musk's rhetoric, laced with dismissive language, not only questioned the integrity of the data but also appeared aimed at undermining the legitimacy of Sanders and AOC's protest efforts. The methodology behind the GPS data analysis is itself a subject of intense scrutiny. Critics have raised questions about how a single source could acquire and compile such detailed information from major cellular providers like Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, and others. The assumptions that underpin these analyses, including the idea that repeated appearances at various protests signal paid participation, are seen by many as overly simplistic. In cities like Denver, where political engagement is high, the likelihood that enthusiastic citizens might attend multiple rallies is considerable. Thus, the claim that the majority of the crowd was orchestrated by activist networks funded by political action committees and other sources appears to be a leap in logic that fails to account for organic civic participation. The controversy over the rally numbers and the authenticity of the protesters feeds into a larger, more complex debate about the influence of money in politics. Musk's criticism is not solely about the numbers on a GPS tracker. It is part of a broader narrative that questions the role of wealthy individuals and corporate money in shaping political discourse. His position, though articulated through a tweet, is emblematic of a long-standing tension in American politics, the influence of big money on democratic processes. Critics argue that the same individuals who decry the influence of oligarchs in politics are, in fact, emblematic of that very system. As Musk continues to assert that the rally was nothing more than a paid assembly of demonstrators, he risks undermining a movement that is focused on challenging the status quo and advocating for a more equitable political system. At the heart of this debate lies a fundamental question about the nature of grassroots activism. Is it possible to distinguish between a genuinely organic protest and one that is, at least in part, organized by networks with deep financial resources? The data presented by Musk's supporters relies heavily on the interpretation of device tracking, a method that, while innovative, is not immune to error or misinterpretation. In a vibrant urban center like Denver, the possibility that many politically engaged citizens might attend multiple events is not only plausible but likely. Consequently, the assertion that such patterns necessarily indicate paid participation is a conclusion that many find unconvincing. Beyond the technicalities of data analysis, there are significant political ramifications to consider. The dispute over the rally numbers is emblematic of a broader struggle over the narrative of American democracy. On one side are voices that contend the current campaign finance system, bolstered by rulings such as Citizens United, has allowed a handful of wealthy individuals to wield disproportionate influence over the political process. They argue that the very notion of democracy is being undermined by a system that prioritizes money and power over the needs of ordinary citizens. On the other side, figures like Musk attempt to delegitimize the visible manifestations of dissent, portraying them as orchestrated spectacles rather than genuine expressions of democratic will. This debate is not confined to ideological differences. It touches upon the real-world consequences of policy decisions that affect healthcare, social security, education, and jobs for veterans. The rhetoric used by Musk and his critics underscores a deep frustration with a system in which the promises of public welfare and democratic accountability are increasingly being overshadowed by the imperatives of wealth accumulation and corporate influence. As progressives continue to push for reforms that would realign the political system with the interests of the many rather than the few, the narrative battle over the authenticity of protest movements becomes a proxy for this much larger struggle. Musk's foray into this debate can be seen as an attempt to deflect attention from his own controversial record. Known for his aggressive business tactics and his focus on consolidating power, Musk's criticisms appear to be a preemptive strike against a movement that directly challenges his worldview. While he criticizes the rally as a carefully engineered event of paid activism, his own business practices and political interventions have frequently been characterized by similar tactics, namely, the pursuit of personal gain at the expense of broader public accountability. In doing so, Musk not only undermines the legitimacy of the protest movement but also highlights the inherent contradictions in his own public persona. Ultimately, the dispute over the Denver rally and the allegations of paid protesters are a microcosm of the larger issues plaguing American democracy today. The tension between grassroots activism and the influence of money in politics has reached a critical juncture. While some continue to question the integrity of the rally based on selective interpretations of data, others see it as a reaffirmation of the enduring power of collective action in the face of oligarchic control. Regardless of the debate over numbers and methodology, one thing remains clear: the public is increasingly unwilling to accept narratives that seek to obscure the true nature of political engagement. In closing, this investigation underscores the need for a rigorous examination of the data and methodologies used to assess civic participation. It also highlights the broader implications of attempts to discredit movements that call for accountability and systemic reform. The story of the Denver rally is not just about one event or one tweet, it is a reflection of the profound challenges facing modern American democracy. As citizens continue to demand transparency and accountability from those in power, the true measure of any protest will be its ability to galvanize public action and drive meaningful change. The stakes are high, and the outcome of this ongoing debate will undoubtedly shape the future trajectory of political discourse in the United States.